Welcome to another episode of Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. I'm Ethan Foster, your resident observer of the human condition, always ready with a dry quip and a raised eyebrow.
And I'm Alara Skye, the curious mind armed with quick wit and a flair for insightful commentary on all things natural health. Today, we're diving into the real nitty-gritty of something that might seem minor in your daily routine, yet apparently it's loaded with potential pitfalls and chemical conspiracies.
You're referring, of course, to the wide world of dryer sheets and fabric softeners. Because when I woke up this morning, the first thing I thought was, you know what deserves more attention in life? The fluffiness level of my towels.
Precisely. Because it's not just about the fluffiness, Ethan. It's about the questionable chemicals lurking in those innocent-looking sheets and liquids. People want that comforting aroma wafting out of their laundry, but they might not realize what's dancing around in that fresh scent.
I'd guess there's some unpronounceable chemical stew in there, like the kind that might require you to store the stuff in a hazmat container if it weren't sold in the big box store.
Right. But it's disguised in these pastel-colored bottles or these cheery, scented sheets with cartoon animals winking at you from the packaging. Marketing brilliance. If a cute bear on the box says it's good, we trust it, right?
Bears never lie, Alara. Winnie the Pooh taught me that. Although Pooh seemed more interested in honey than dryer freshness.
Let's set the stage for everyone listening. Dryer sheets and fabric softeners are typically jam-packed with chemicals that can do some not-so-fun things to your health, your clothes, your washing machine, your dryer, your lungs. Basically everything except your financial advisor. Unless that's your neighbor who's complaining about the dryer vent fumes.
And if your financial advisor does your laundry, well, that's a separate conversation. So, to break this down, we want to explore exactly why dryer sheets and fabric softeners ended up on the health watch list in the first place. Then we'll chat about alternatives, brand recommendations, and maybe unravel the myth that fresh scent equals clean.
Yes, because there's a big difference between an actual sense of clean and certain synthetic fragrances that just say, behold, I smell like a meadow in spring, but in reality, I'm a potential respiratory irritant with a colorful marketing budget. That's a mouthful.
Indeed it is. But let's start with the big bullet points. First, we have dryer sheets and fabric softeners brimming with harmful chemicals, some labeled as carcinogens, others as potential endocrine disruptors, neurotoxicants, or asthma triggers. Some of these can be absorbed through the skin or inhaled through the dryer vent. Not exactly the uplifting laundry day scenario we imagine.
Right. And while you can't literally see these chemicals swirling around, they do get carried on the hot air that's vented out. It's like opening your windows on a crisp day, only to get a lungful of synthetic scents from every dryer in your neighborhood. That's particularly wonderful for anyone with sensitivity to fragrances.
Let's talk about some specifics. The fact that these products can reduce the efficiency of your washer and dryer is a lesser-known side effect. Everything gets coated in this film, making drying times longer, clogging filters, and in some cases, raising fire risks. If that's not a wake-up call, I don't know what is.
Right, because we want a machine that's running smoothly, not building a chemical plaque inside like a drier version of cholesterol. It's ironically expensive to keep using cheap dryer sheets, because you end up paying more in electricity over time. And that's before we even mention the potential hazards to your lungs.
Let's also mention VOCs, volatile organic compounds. You know, the kinds of chemicals that can produce lovely side effects like headaches, dizziness, or turning your living room air into a quasi-lab experiment for a few hours. Over 25 different VOCs can be emitted from dryer sheets alone, especially scented ones. That's a lot of uninvited guests in your airspace.
Think about that if you've ever gotten a headache when passing by the detergent aisle. It's basically the same phenomenon, but funneling right into your home. For those with asthma, apparently up to 64.3% of asthmatics experience adverse reactions from these fragranced products. That's nearly 2/3. If dryer sheets had a Yelp review from the asthmatic community, the rating might not be stellar.
It might read something like, 1 star, my lungs have decided to flee the country in protest. Let's not forget that some of these chemicals cause the clothes to degrade. Towels lose their absorbency. Dark clothing gets mysterious oily stains, courtesy of chemicals like polydimethylsiloxane. Of course, it has a name that rolls right off the tongue.
Exactly. That's part of the point. If we can't pronounce it without advanced phonetic training, maybe we should be a bit skeptical about rubbing it on our laundry. And then we have the built-up residue on the washer's filter. Over time, it cakes onto everything, messing with airflow, sensor readings, and apparently threatening spontaneous dryer fires. Why gamble with that?
Good question. We might be the only species on Earth that sets up elaborate chemical-laden tumble machines for our clothing, all for the sake of a plush texture and that artificially fresh smell. Meanwhile, we're paying for it in health costs and utility bills. When did line drying become so passé?
I'm convinced it was around the time someone said, but it's so crisp outside and the towels get stiff. So we invented chemicals to artificially soften them, ironically making them less absorbent over time. It's a comedy of errors, minus the comedic aspect, unless you're a stand-up comedian with a chemical punchline.
Lucky for us, we do have comedic aspects, because we're here to make sense of this madness. Let's talk alternatives. There's no shortage of ways to soften your clothes or reduce static cling without turning your dryer into a chemical carnival ride.
One big star in the non-toxic laundry discussion is the humble wool dryer ball. People basically toss a few of these wool spheres into the dryer. They bounce around, separate your clothes, and reduce static. They can shorten drying times too, because they help air circulate, and all without giving you or your clothes a dose of synthetic nastiness.
And for those who crave a pleasant scent, you can add a drop or two of a genuine essential oil to these dryer balls. Just make sure it's an oil that won't cause your entire hamper to spontaneously combust.
Exactly. We want that gentle aroma of lavender, not a raging inferno. Another option is to simply use vinegar during the rinse cycle. Just a quarter cup of white or apple cider vinegar will help soften clothing naturally. It won't leave your wardrobe smelling like a pickle jar. The scent evaporates.
Baking soda is another old-school champion. 1 teaspoon tossed into the wash can helps soften fabrics. And if you want to get truly old-fashioned, just hang your clothes outside. A gentle breeze can be quite the natural dryer, provided you don't live in a wet or extremely polluted environment.
True. If you can't line dry year-round, at least consider it in warmer months. It's free. And you might remember the days when the sun used to lighten white sheets naturally, rather than using brightening chemicals. Everything old is new again.
Some people even use aluminum foil balls. They wad it up, toss it in the dryer, and it helps reduce static cling. Granted, I can't say it's a perfect solution, but hey, it's an option that doesn't fill the air with synthetic fragrances.
The comedic image of rummaging through the recycling bin for spare aluminum to ball up might amuse you, but it can work. Now, since we have this big rundown of options, let's also talk about how these conventional products have been ranked. There was an investigation by Mamavation, an organization that looked at many brands of fabric softeners and dryer sheets. They discovered which ones to avoid, which were better, and which were best, though, spoiler alert, the best category is small.
Yes, that's always how it goes, right? We find out there's an entire aisle of these products, but only a handful qualify as decent for the planet and your health. Then we wonder why we're out of breath if we stand in that aisle too long.
Precisely. Mamavation found the usual suspects in the not our favorite category. Downy, Gain, Snuggle, the gang's all there. These had a range of questionable ingredients: quaternary ammonium compounds, synthetic fragrances, or other chemicals linked to nasty side effects.
Meanwhile, in the better category, you had brands that, yes, improved on some things, but still kept us guessing about their fragrance. So they might boast, we only use 4 main ingredients plus a natural fragrance. But that's the rub. Fragrance is the black box where the brand can hide a menagerie of chemicals. So it's better, but still a bit mysterious.
Right, because fragrance is basically the corporate version of don't ask, don't tell. We get it. Some companies want to protect their proprietary scents. However, that's not helpful if we want to know exactly what we're inhaling. So you have a short list of best options, and a big chunk of them revolve around simply skipping all the fancy chemicals.
The same pattern emerges with dryer sheets. The not our favorite list is jam-packed with big brands using quats and fragrances that have questionable ingredients. Then there's a better list that includes products from more natural-minded companies. They skip some of the big offenders, but may still have unknown fragrance components or other minor red flags.
Precisely. Then the best dryer sheets often aren't actually sheets. They're wool dryer balls, the pure ones without added weirdness. Some companies offer zero-waste wool dryer balls made from responsibly sourced wool, ensuring you're not harming animals. Or you can choose something like the Pure Eco Sheet, a reusable sheet that doesn't contain the typical chemicals.
Right? One takeaway is that we might be reaching the point where we move beyond the idea of single-use dryer sheets entirely. Why keep throwing them away if we can rely on something durable, safe, and ironically, more cost-effective over time?
Exactly. Especially when you consider how conventional dryer sheets and fabric softeners coat your laundry and your machines. It's like paying for sabotage. Hello. I'd like to buy a product that will shorten my washer's lifespan, make my dryer less efficient, potentially mess with my health, and reduce the longevity of my clothes. Do you accept credit cards?
That's some top-tier marketing. Let's also mention the environmental aspect. All those chemicals ultimately go somewhere, into waterways, into the air. We may not see that part of the story when we toss a used dryer sheet into the trash.
That's right. We often forget that the life cycle of these products includes disposal into the environment, where they can affect wildlife, fish, and the broader ecosystem. We're becoming increasingly aware that microplastics and chemicals show up in surprising places, so we might want to cut down on contributing to that problem.
So let's provide a quick recap in our own comedic style. Summary. Conventional dryer sheets and fabric softeners can be trouble. They're full of chemicals you can't pronounce. They leave a residue that can hamper the efficiency of your washer and dryer. They reduce absorbency in your towels. They can leave oily stains on your darks. They release VOCs that may trigger migraines or asthma attacks. They're not so great for the planet. Any questions?
That about sums it up in a comedic yet tragic bullet point. On the flip side, we have safer alternatives. Vinegar in the rinse cycle, baking soda in the wash, aluminum foil or wool dryer balls in the dryer, or skip the dryer altogether when you can. You can also check out brands that promise to be free from hormone-disrupting chemicals, though always look at that ingredient list carefully.
You'd think after all that, there might be a giant public outcry. How dare you corporate overlords fill our washers with questionable chemicals? But we're so used to that fresh linen smell. We assume that's just how clothing is supposed to smell.
Right, the nose is a powerful organ. Many of us grew up with that strong floral or outdoor breeze fragrance, so the notion of clothes that just smell like, well, clothes, might seem underwhelming. But that's what truly clean fabric smells like. A slight neutral aroma, maybe with a hint of sunshine if line-dried. It shouldn't smell like a chemical orchard.
Absolutely. The entire fragrance phenomenon is rooted in marketing and nostalgia. We connect it with cleanliness, but if it's giving us or someone in the home a headache, that's a sign it's not so benign. And if half the asthmatics in a neighborhood can't go outside when your dryer is running, maybe it's time to reevaluate.
Well, if you're partial to the idea of your clothes smelling wonderful, essential oils could be the safer route, assuming you're comfortable with them and you're mindful about using them. A couple of drops on wool dryer balls. Then you might get that lovely lavender or lemon smell without the chemical baggage.
It's the difference between, fresh lavender, and, my eyes are watering. Probably best to do some research on the essential oils themselves. But that's a separate conversation about sourcing, purity, all those disclaimers.
Exactly. And not to mention, if you're still in love with the idea of soft clothing, you'll be relieved to know that repeated washing, plus a gentle alternative routine, can actually keep your clothes soft over time. Sometimes that stiff feeling occurs if you overstuff the washer, use too much detergent, or overdry clothes. So you might consider adjusting your approach before you run out for a giant bottle of softener.
Fascinating how a few practical changes can transform your laundry experience. For instance, I read that good circulation in the dryer is key. Overloading your dryer means your clothes are just spinning around in an overcrowded sauna. They come out wrinkly, staticky, and not particularly fresh. But if you reduce the load size, dryness improves, static is reduced, and you may not feel as compelled to add any sheets or softeners.
Yes, well, we humans love to jam everything in one load to save time. Oh, 87 items can fit in this load, let's do it. But we end up with sad results. Then we blame the dryer, when in fact, the dryer is just trying to do its job in a clown car scenario.
The clown car dryer. That's a mental image. Now, back to this idea of essential chemicals and the perspective of Dr. Mercola's approach to cellular wisdom. The body operates on a delicate balance. Constant exposure to questionable chemicals can put stress on the body at the cellular level. People might not notice immediate effects, but over years, these little exposures add up.
Precisely. The idea of cellular wisdom is that our cells do best when they're not bombarded by toxins. Repeated exposure to these chemicals can affect hormones, respiration, and neurological function. Why sabotage your own biology just for a scented spin cycle?
Another angle is the concept of minimalism. We already have laundry detergent, hopefully a non-toxic one. That detergent's job is to get your clothes clean. Do you really need a separate liquid or sheet that coats your garments in a chemical film, just to say, they're even softer now, plus scented like tropical blossoms?
Right. Some detergents do a solid job without needing a separate additive. On top of that, a clean garment doesn't necessarily require an artificial perfume, especially if people around you might have sensitivities. We're learning more every day about how fragrance and chemicals can harm vulnerable individuals. Why not be mindful?
Indeed. And this conversation about dryer sheets and fabric softeners also echoes a bigger shift in consumer thinking. People want to reduce their toxic load, reduce environmental harm, and be more conscientious about packaging waste. This is a small but meaningful step toward that mindset.
Also, for parents and caretakers, if you have a baby or someone with sensitive skin, you want to avoid fragrances that can cause rashes or irritation. Babies don't need to smell like artificial lavender fields. They smell wonderful enough on their own.
That's a helpful reminder. Let's also circle back to the brand breakdown. The not our favorite list was jam-packed with big names. You see, it's not some niche brand that we're throwing under the bus, it's the mainstream ones. That's unfortunate, but hey, it's our reality.
Meanwhile, the better category had brands like Attitude, Drops, eCover, and 7th Generation. They may be transparent about some ingredients, but not always about their fragrance components. So it's a step in the right direction if you absolutely want something that's labeled as a fabric softener or dryer sheet, but still not perfect.
Then in the best category, it's basically a short list of actual fabric softeners and dryer sheets, plus a hearty recommendation for wool dryer balls. The suggestion is that maybe we don't need these products at all, or we rely on a handful of truly transparent, non-toxic brands.
Exactly. And even among best brands, some folks may still be allergic to something. So do your homework, read labels, and pay attention to how your body responds. That said, the safest route is usually the simplest. Vinegar, wool balls, baking soda, let nature do the rest.
Now, what do you think is the reason these mainstream companies cling to their old formulas? Is it inertia? Is it cost? Or is it that consumers equate certain fragrances with brand loyalty?
Probably all of the above. They have trademarked scents. People are nostalgic about them. Think about how some folks say, "I love the smell of my grandma's house. She always used this brand." Brands know that hooking you on that memory keeps you as a lifelong customer.
Meanwhile, we're learning that these scents can be stuffed with benzyl acetate, which, last I checked, is not particularly great for your lungs. But because it's never labeled as such, just part of fragrance, nobody's the wiser.
Right. That's the core issue. If these chemicals had to be named on the front label, folks might say, "What's benzyl acetate? Why is it in my shirt?" And that might spark some serious reevaluation. That's probably why companies prefer the umbrella term fragrance.
So, to sum up, the big takeaway is, if you care about what you breathe, what touches your skin, and the longevity of your clothes and machines, it might be time to ditch or drastically reduce use of conventional dryer sheets and fabric softeners. Explore simpler, safer alternatives. Put a dash of comedic cynicism into your next trip down the laundry aisle. And maybe don't trust that giant smiling teddy bear on the packaging.
Exactly. The teddy bear might be adorable, but you might be paying a not-so-cuddly price for that comfort. Before we wrap up, let's consider if there's anything else we should address for those new to the concept. Perhaps a quick note on how to start making the switch?
Sure. First step. Use up or discard the stash of conventional dryer sheets if you're ready to move on. Maybe do a thorough cleaning of your dryer lint filter by scrubbing it with soap and water to remove any residue. Start with a simpler approach. Do a load without any fabric softener or dryer sheet at all. See how it feels. Check for static, dryness, etc.
Indeed. Then, if you notice static, pop in a couple of wool dryer balls. If you want a softening effect, add a quarter cup of vinegar to your wash's rinse cycle. If you're feeling a tad rebellious, toss a little baking soda in the wash. See how your clothes come out. Then you can keep customizing.
Over time, your clothes themselves may become softer once you remove the chemical buildup. It's like letting them recover from a chemical codependency. Suddenly, your towels might become more absorbent again.
Yes, your towels might actually do the job they were born to do, drying you, without an oily film blocking them. That's the miracle of nature. Who knew removing something could add so much value?
It's a nice life lesson. Sometimes less is more, especially when it comes to chemicals. We should remind folks that this is just one rung on the ladder of creating a less toxic household. Once you see how easy it is to remove this step, you might look at other everyday products and wonder, do I need these chemicals, or have I just been trained to think I do?
Absolutely. This conversation about laundry can spark deeper reflections on personal care items, cleaning products, air fresheners, candles, even the packaging of your takeout. It's all interconnected. Our daily habits shape the environment, and the environment shapes us right back.
But for today, we've tackled the realm of laundry. We covered how these products degrade machines, release nasty chemicals, and put us at risk for respiratory issues, migraines, skin irritation, and more. We spelled out plenty of alternatives, explained how you can transition, and hopefully gave you a laugh or two along the way.
That's the beauty of cellular wisdom, shining a bright light on overlooked areas of daily life. Because health isn't just about the big stuff like working out or taking supplements. Sometimes it's the mundane tasks like washing clothes that accumulate into a big chunk of your toxic or non-toxic exposure.
Precisely. And that's where real change can happen. You don't have to become a homesteader who churns your own laundry soap. Just a few conscious tweaks can make a difference. So, if our conversation has inspired you to look at your laundry routine, we consider that mission accomplished.
I'm definitely inspired, partly by the comedic tragedy that is conventional dryer sheets, but also by the hope that we can do better. And as always, if you want that fresh smell, try some essential oils or just savor the smell of true clean laundry.
I'm guessing the comedic tragedy portion for you is the image of me rummaging around my place, attempting to find aluminum foil to ball up.
You guessed it. You're going to do that, aren't you?
Possibly. But I'll also get some wool dryer balls, maybe the ones that come in a nice box with a picture of happy sheep. It's a moral victory for me and the planet. And hey, if it keeps the cat entertained, that's a bonus.
Exactly. The cat might enjoy chasing them around when they're not in use, but that's a separate perk. Before we close, let's give folks one final comedic soundbite. If your laundry smells like a chemical-laced meadow, consider the possibility you're smelling marketing hype more than actual clean.
That's the real tagline, right there. Don't be fooled by the chemical meadow. On that note, I think we've successfully covered the territory. We touched on Momovation's brand analysis, broke down the issues with conventional products, talked about safe alternatives, and hopefully we didn't sound like we were just gloom and doom.
I'd say we blended in enough comedic observations to lighten the load. Pun intended. Because that's what we do best. Take heavy topics and spin them with a dash of wit.
Absolutely. And with that, we want to thank everyone for tuning in to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. We hope you got some valuable insight and maybe a few laughs about the realities of dryer sheets and fabric softeners.
Remember, your choices ripple out from your laundry room to your overall well-being and the planet. If we can keep it simple and keep it clean, that's a win for everyone. Except maybe the folks selling those scented sheets.
They'll survive. They still have those commercials with teddy bears climbing into laundry baskets. But for us, we'll choose a different path. Thanks again for listening. This is Ethan Foster.
And I'm Alara Sky. Tune in next time for more enlightening, entertaining conversations on Dr. Mercola's cellular wisdom,
Where we dive into health topics that might be overshadowed by cuddly mascots, but deserve a spotlight in your quest for a better life.
Stay curious, stay informed, and remember that sometimes the best changes start with the simple things, like taking a second look at that dryer sheet. Take care, everyone.